Is Northeast China's real estate market booming? Living rent-free in villas just cover the heating cost? Is purchasing property a raw deal for non-locals? Recently, a video has been circulating widely on Chinese social media. Harbin isn't the fun and budget-friendly destination it's made out to be online. I spent over 700,000 yuan during my trip of just a few days. Harbin's tourism authorities should take note. The woman featured in the video, originally from Beijing, made quite a substantial investment after her trip to Harbin during the freezing cold. She purchased a 115 square meter property in the city's central area, spending a significant sum of 710,000 yuan. She then created this amusing video showcasing her property contract and certificate, which attracted attention from numerous online viewers. The woman in the video is an experienced real estate professional, and when asked whether investing in Harbin's property market is a wise decision, she emphatically advises against it. She explains that despite the Harbin's popularity as a tourist destination, it's not an ideal choice for property investment due to its consistently declining property prices, which have been on a downward trend of 37 consecutive months. Furthermore, she points out that once the current excitement subsides, selling the purchased property would be an uphill battle, given the limited market liquidity in Harbin's real estate sector. In November last year, the average price for second-hand homes in Harbin stood at 8,869 yuan per square meter, marking a 1.4% decrease from the previous month and a 5.4% decline compared to the same month the previous year. Data released by China's National Bureau of Statistics reveals a continuous decline in housing prices in Harbin, affecting both second-hand and new homes. The data also shows that according to the 70 City Housing Price Index, the prices for second-hand homes have been consistently declining on a month-to-month basis since November 2020, marking a downward trend for 37 consecutive months. Similarly, the new housing market has witnessed a year-on-year declines for 32 consecutive months. It's evident from the second-hand home listing on Beike in Harbin that in December last year, the number of second-hand homes listed reached 107,388 units, marking an increase of 14,233 units compared to February of the same year when the listing stood at 93,155 units. With stagnated sales in the second-hand housing market, sellers are left with no choice but to compete by lowering prices. Even more astonishing are the results of foreclosed properties in Harbin's real estate market. On December 29, 2023, Alibaba's auction platform unveiled an outcome of an auction for the foreclosed property situated in Harbin's central area. Despite having an assessed market value of 387,000 yuan, the final selling price was a mere 166,001 yuan. This translates to a substantial discount equivalent to acquiring the property at just 44% of its market valuation. The lady featured in the video underscores a notable advantage of owning property in Harbin compared to southern China, that is, the provision of heating. However, residents from Northeast China often point out that while you may be able to afford a home, the real challenge lies in covering the exorbitant heating costs. This video showcases a substantial villa community in Northeast China. The surrounding amenities are relatively complete, and transportation is convenient. However, nearly all the houses are vacant, with most of them bearing for sale signs. The woman in the video explains that due to the high cost of heating and property management fees, many people can't afford to live in these houses and they struggle to sell them. Suppose you own this property, regardless of whether you live in it or not, you still have to pay the heating fee every year, along with any overdue fines. The heating fee amounts to 28 yuan per square meter, so for a house exceeding 200 square meters, the heating cost alone can reach 6,000 to 7,000 yuan, not to mention the additional overdue fines. Currently, all it takes is covering the heating fee, and you can live in the house at no extra cost. If there are internet users from the southern regions interested, they are welcome to move in. And those who can't afford the heating fee include the young people who had originally resigned from their jobs to rush to Hegang to buy houses. In this video, a local elderly resident in Hegang explains, in Hegang, you don't have to pay rent for renting a house. You just need to cover the heating costs. A young man asked a local elderly gentleman about the monthly rent for a house.
You don't have to pay the rent fee, only need to pay for the heating cost. So it's free to rent as long as you pay for heating. If you charge rent, nobody will agree to rent, and the property owner would have to pay for the heating, also risking the pipes getting frozen.
Peoples first discovered the affordability of housing in northeast China starting prefecture-level city of Hegang, located on the border of Heilongjiang. Once a thriving coal city, Hegang faced economic challenges after its resources were depleted. With a significant population outflow, vacant houses become difficult to sell. While housing prices in other parts of the country often exceeded millions of yuan, here one could purchase a house for as low as 30,000 to 40,000 yuan. The incredibly affordable housing prices have drawn the interest of numerous young individuals who couldn't afford homes in major cities. They decided to quit their jobs, utilize their savings, and came here to buy a property ready to lie flat and enjoy life. So, what does a day of this lying flat lifestyle in Hegang entail? Upon arriving in Hegang, this young individual checked into a pre-booked guest house for 80 yuan per day, which wasn't particularly cheap. After settling in, they explored the local surroundings. They indulged in a Hegang-style skewer snack, spending 55 yuan on their meals. After a satisfying lunch, they returned home to rest. The next day, they woke up at 4 a.m., took a taxi for a starting fare of 6 yuan, and headed to the nearby morning market. There, they ate lamb soup and flatbread for a total cost of 11 yuan. Following breakfast, they visited a popular low-cost residential area, the neighborhoods where houses can be purchased for just a few tens of thousands of yuan. Typically, these lower-cost areas are quite far from the city center, often around 10 kilometers or more. After viewing properties in the morning, they took a bus ride back home and enjoyed a 9.8 yuan self-serve lunch from a downstairs food vending machine. After lunch, the afternoon was spent watching TV and using their phones, and before they knew it, it was 5 p.m. They then dined at a local popular eatery, spending 60 yuan on Hegan-style skewers. Following dinner, they visited a nearby supermarket to purchase some fruits and daily necessities, spending 20 yuan. Finally, they returned home, watched TV, and prepared for bedtime. This was a typical day of the lying flat lifestyle in Hegang. Some comments noted that the food expenses for a single day amounted to 100 yuan. For someone adopting the lying flat lifestyle without an income, they wondered how long their savings would last. This calculation didn't even include essential expenses such as water, electricity, heating, and more. This may sound ideal in theory, but the reality is quite harsh. While housing prices in Hegang are indeed low, it's a place devoid of hope. There are no resources, no industries, and job opportunities are scarce. Even if one manages to find employment, the abysmally low wages are disheartening. Just as a young person in this video mentioned, do you really think you can live a carefree life in a place where you can buy a house for just tens of thousands of yuan? Think again. The common thread among those who can only afford houses in these areas is that they have limited financial resources. While houses may be affordable here, the cost of renovations alone can amount to around 100,000 yuan. The prerequisite for adopting a laid-back lifestyle is having a stable income, but most of these cities are primarily source-depleted, offering fewer job opportunities, and the houses purchased lack any resale value. Unless you're quite wealthy and can buy a house for leisure purposes, don't envision it too idealistically. What you see is often what others want you to see. So what has become of the young individuals who initially flocked to Hegang to pursuit of affordable housing? Several years ago, Hegang, a relatively obscure city, experienced a brief period of vitality and novelty thanks to an influx of young newcomers. However, this vivacity was short-lived, and those who arrived here quickly realized that Hegang did not live up to the idyllic portrayals seen in the media and did not offer the ideal life young people had envisioned. In Hegang, while acquiring a house may not break the bank, life here is likely to drain one's lifetime savings.
Hegang's urbanization rate is as high as 81.5%, surpassing many places in the country. You might wonder why property prices are so low here. Hegang was once a well-known coal mining city, but as coal resources dwindled, other job opportunities vanished, leading to a significant population exodus. Not just anyone can afford to buy property here. So, who can actually purchase homes? Mostly freelancers. After the city gained popularity due to its low property prices, many people fled here without much thought. However, apart from affordable housing, there isn't much else here. With a lack of job opportunities, an extended winter season, costly heating bills, and various living expenses, how long can your savings truly support you? Consequently, many young individuals regret their impulsive decision to come here and have mostly left.
The video reveals that in 2010, Hegang had a population of 1 million residents, but by 2021, the population had dwindled to just 308,000. Owners found themselves unable to sell houses and had to resort to constant price reductions. Many young people relying on their hard-earned savings bought homes in Hegang and began their lives here. However, numerous conflicts started surfacing gradually. Everyone who came to live in Hegang was undeniably attracted by its low property prices and cost of living. Yet, behind these advantages were low wages and standards. Due to Hegang's struggling economy, sparse population, and mostly elderly residents, job opportunities for young people were scarce. Even if you were fortunate enough to secure a job, the wage were often lower than property prices, making it challenging for many. The average salary in Hegang was only around 1,200 yuan and 1,800 yuan, was considered a high salary here. Many young people who moved from larger cities found it impossible to downgrade their standard of living. While some may have seen their shopping desires fade, certain essential expenses couldn't be avoided. As a broader city in Heilongjiang, Hegang had an extended and frigid winter season, making heating an indispensable necessity. People often needed to keep the heating on for over half the year, resulting in a significant annual expense. Such low wage standards not only left many young people struggling with daily expenses, but also made it challenging to afford heating during the winter months. The lack of young residents made life in Hegang monotonous and inconvenient. Several years have passed, and those young individuals who initially came to Hegang to purchase home have not only failed to realize their dreams of lying flat, but have also found themselves in a new predicament. In the end, most of them choose to leave Hegang. As for the houses they bought initially, they could only sell them at lower prices. For example, a young man from Sichuan purchased a bare-bones apartment for 42,000 yuan and invested an additional 40,000 yuan in renovations. He spent a total of over 80,000 yuan but only lived there for a month. Unable to find suitable work, bored with life, and unable to tolerate the local cold, he decided to leave Hegang. To sell his apartment, he had to lower the price to 47,000 yuan. Fortunately, the apartment he bought was not in an old community with central heating. If he couldn't sell it right away, he could still suspend heating for the winter, saving a significant heating bill. There's also a young man from Guangdong who bought a house in Hegang a year ago. It's a 54 square meter bare shell apartment in a prime location, and he spent over 80,000 yuan on the purchase. He then invested over 40,000 yuan in renovations and over 10,000 yuan on furniture and appliances, totaling more than 135,000 yuan. A year later, the young man wanted to return home and planned to sell it for 93,000 yuan. Despite his reluctance, he was willing to take a loss of over 40,000 yuan.
Many people from other provinces who buy houses in Hegang, just like me, feel like they're big spending victims.
Nowadays, the first wave of young people who came to Hegang to buy homes has almost disappeared. As young people exit the scene, the housing market in Hegang, which has lost its popularity, still struggles. What's different now is that the cheapest houses, which are originally around 40,000 yuan, are now selling for as low as 15,000 yuan per unit. For Chinese people, housing is a heavy topic. In the eyes of most Chinese, a home is not just a place for shelter and comfort. It's also an enormous and relentless monster that devours people's hard-earned money and even the earnings of 3 generations of their ancestors. Most Chinese people, aside from their houses and mortgages, have very little to their name. Countless individuals find themselves trapped in this cage made of steel and concrete, struggling to breathe. According to publicly available data by 2019, China already had 400 million mortgage slaves, with an average debt of up to 1 million yuan per homeowner. By 2023, the number of indebted individuals in China reached nearly 800 million people, with 85% being from the post-80s and post-90s generation, the current main workforce and home buyers. The 3-year-long pandemic exacerbated the economic downturn in China. A wave of business closure emerged, leading to a surge in unemployment. In just the first half of 2023, China saw 460,000 companies closed down and over 3.1 million businesses deregistered. Starting in July, for every 40,000 companies nationwide, one faced the risk of shutting down. Chinese people can no longer bear skyrocketing housing prices, and they are unable to shoulder burdensome mortgage debt. According to public reports, in 2023, China had over 10 million properties currently in the state of abandonment, and the number of foreclosed homes continued to rise. According to a monitoring report released by China Index Academy, the numbers speak for themselves. In the first 9 months of 2023, the total number of foreclosed homes listed for auction across the country was 584,000 units, which is a 32.3% increase compared to the same period in 2022, with an absolute increase of 142,000 units. Among them, residential properties had the highest proportion, reaching 48.6%. It's worth mentioning that the foreclosed home market is concentrated in larger and mid-sized cities. Exhausted urban youths are seeking an escape from the overwhelming housing prices in major cities, where costs range from tens of thousands to over 100,000 per square meter. Many have flocked to places like Harbin or Hegang, where they believe they can find an ideal space for their physical and mental well-being without sacrificing their health or lives for a home. However, they've discovered what awaits them isn't a picturesque escape experience, but the beginning of another nightmare. Hegang, once a nationwide trendy destination, has now faded into obscurity. The question looms, how long can Harbin's property market frenzy last? And for those who purchased homes in Harbin during the height of the real estate boom, how long can they hold out? Perhaps the answers were predetermined. China has an age-old saying that translates to, "It's hard to leave one's hometown." However, in recent years, numerous young people from the northeast China have left their ancestral land without hesitation. In recent times, the issue of population decline in northeast China has frequently been discussed. After the 7th national census in 2020, the combined population of the 3 northeastern provinces stood at 99 million residents, a decrease of 11 million compared to a decade ago. In just 1 year, in 2022, the population of the 3 northeastern provinces declined by over 830,000 residents. As of November 2020, Harbin's permanent population was 10.1 million, barely holding onto the 10 million mark. However, it was the sole provincial capital city in China that experienced a net outflow of population from 2010 to 2020. But not even a year later, the city's population dropped below the 10 million mark. According to 2021 Harbin Municipal National Economics and Social Development Report, at the end of 2021, the city's permanent population was 9.9 million residents. Since then, no city in northeast China has had a population exceeding 10 million. It is evident that in densely populated areas, there are more opportunities, higher incomes, and as a result, they attract more young people. The slogan to revitalize northeast China has been chanted for 20 years, but the result is more and more young people from the regions eagerly fleeing this land. It's because there's no future and no hope for them there. The fleeing of young people has hastened the decline of northeast China and is also the underlying cause of the region's low housing prices. It's a conundrum, one that can't simply be unraveled by a group of non local purchasing a few properties. Whether it's a mid sized city like Hegang or a provincial capital like Harbin, the outcome remains the same. Consider this, a place that can't even hold on to its local population, how can it support the dreams of those from afar?